Think about that. From the perspective of a teacher, of a tutor, of a student, and of a guidance counselor. What is the responsibility of the educators? To reach out and get all kids up to this level, or to let kids choose when they're 14, 15, 16, what they want to do? Let the kids choose where they want to go to work. Let the kids choose where they want to learn about financial aid forms. Let the kids choose where they want to go on college visits. Well, sometimes those choices aren't best made by students, especially when they're 12, 13, 14. They got other things on their mind, as I'm sure you and I did when we were that age. Right? And then last thing, because I know you're tutoring different grades, and I've talked a lot about high schools. All right? I talked to many, many parents about schools and school performance and advice for their kids and so forth. And I tell many, many elementary school parents, and they look at me nuts, but I tell them that elementary middle school parents, I say, be very careful what math your child takes as in 6th grade. In 6th grade. And they say, oh, middle school doesn't matter. That doesn't, I want my kids stressed out. They're going through enough when they go transition to middle school. They got enough in their mind. I'm not going to push them into that next level of math, whatever that next level would be. We'll deal with it when we get to high school. Well, by the time you get to high school, it's too late. Okay? You've got to start thinking about the academic success of all students at the elementary grades. For instance, if you don't take algebra as an 8th grader, you've got virtually no shot of ever taking calculus in high school. And if you don't take calculus in high school, you've got no shot of getting into Cornell engineering. No shot. Now, this conversation is not all about Cornell engineering, but the point holds for no matter what you're talking about. Okay? That's for calculus in high school. But if you don't push the kids in math, don't push the kids in reading at an early age, as if this really matters, okay? By the time the kids get to 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and my oldest child is in 7th grade now. I used to be a 7th and 8th grade teacher. And you see all the sorting that goes on through the middle school years. Okay? They try to balance these teams. There are often teams in middle schools. They try to balance them, and they're balancing them by not only gender and oftentimes class, but often by achievement. And so so it really does matter what math and what English class the kids are taking when they're in 6th grade, 7th grade. Okay? Now, maybe not, again, not everyone's going to go on and take calculus in high school. But if you don't get them to take algebra as an 8th grader, there's no chance. If they don't take algebra as a 9th grader, then they're never going to get pre-calc as a senior. And that takes on a whole bunch of other college admissions decisions. Okay? So there's many, many facets to this that covers many, many grades. And then the feds are working on this, the states are working on this, local leaders are working on this with varying degrees of success. And so what you're about to do is part of this broader system. Okay? It's a volunteer part of the system, but a crucial part, because the research also is very clear that sometimes it's just a couple people that shape the lives of these kids and push them on to do great things. A lot of times you'll talk to high school grads who beat the odds, and they're asked, how did you do it? Oh, I had a 4th grade teacher that really convinced me I could do this. They got me feeling so strong about myself. I got through middle school, even though no one believed in me. But I knew I could because of that one 4th grade teacher. All right? You never know what effect you're going to have. You never know. But we do know if we don't do this, what the effect is. We do know if the feds don't take any action, the states don't take any action, if local school boards and teachers don't take any action, we know the result. Okay, that's what we have already. So, let me stop there. And what questions do you have? You have very different backgrounds, very different experiences with schools. But, what do you got? Yes?
Do you ever look at like processing skills? I know you talked about children who's mentally disabled that faces burnout, but are people looking at ones who are to a lesser degree, but to kind of get swept along with everyone?
Yeah, the questions about, have we ever looked at I mentioned the most severely disabled kids before, but there's a full range of special education children that are identified and classified now. And people have very strong views on whether that's a good thing or not, or whether we have this ever-increasing number of classified kids, because the number of categories keeps growing and growing, and how schools are dealing with that. One thing we know, and I do not work typically, and I do not study typically at the individual cognitive level. That's not what I do. I'm more of an organizations person than a policy person. But so my response to that, what I know, would be that going back to 2000, when the state of New York said every single school district needs to get all their kids up to these new standards, okay? School districts responded about special education in one of two ways. One type of district pushed everyone they could find into special education. And we're sitting with these people saying, why did you do that? It's very, very, very expensive, very time consuming. And they said special needs students can have modifications to the testing environment. And if we can get these kids time and a half, they might have a shot. It had nothing to do with whether they actually qualified to be a special needs student, okay? But the district said, we can better serve this kid, meaning we can get better test scores out of the kid by identifying them, and then alter the testing environment. Other districts said, God, we're not doing that. They'll break the bank. We are declassifying as many people as we can. Declassifying as many special needs students as they could, okay? And then taking all those resources they were spending on special ed students, okay? Not calling them special ed teachers anymore, but getting more and more teachers into the classroom where they could work with all kids. The special ed teachers are typically restricted to work with special needs kids who are classified that way. So some districts reshifted the resources there, reallocated resources, so that they could distribute the very high cost of special education across the whole school building to serve all kids rather than just the special ed kids. And I'm sure both those are controversial, and there's pros and cons to each one. But, so you look at the processes in schools, how you allocate resources at different grade levels, really, really important. Question? Yeah.
Within your study, do you have data? Do you guys view discrepancies among gender? Between the genders?
In the achievement right here in town, very minimal differences by gender, which we would have found 20, 25 years ago. Every once in a while, one would pop up one way or the other. There's a lot of conversation. I've heard many people say, we've gone so overboard trying to serve girls in schools that now the schools are becoming detrimental to boys. They're very anti-boy, particularly at the elementary grades. I've heard people say this. And there's been books written about this, there's been studies done on this. I'm not yet convinced we've tipped over that much on that. But it's because the numbers don't really bear that out. Yes, we have more women going on to college than men these days, okay? And yes, we have more women in medical school now than men. That's tipped. It's about 51-49, okay? Now, is that so outrageous? There's more women than men in the country, okay? You bio folks out there, there's slightly more women than men. That's a biological phenomenon that occurs. So I think that's a concern for some. We didn't find much data to support that kind of concern. Even in math or science, or the one exception was the traditional high school physics class, that kind of thing. Enrollment in the physics, or the AP physics class, there was a gender difference, and that's something to pay attention to.
Can you talk a little bit about how the ramifications of failing NCLB affect high school?
Yeah.
I'm from Binghamton, which is Binghamton High School is pretty diverse and
Sure.
fails NCLB every year.
Yeah.
But a lot of people attribute that to the fact that we're diverse enough to have those have enough people to fill a cohort.
Yeah.
Whereas Vestal, which is a suburban district right next to us,
Yeah.
might have the same achievement gap, but if they have 29 African American students and we have 30, we have a cohort, so it's acknowledged that they don't.
I didn't mention the flaws with NCLB.
Yeah.
Okay, if your subgroups are too small, they don't get reported.
Right.
You're right, that's absolutely right, and it's important to know. So districts can still hide, intentionally or not, whatever their willful intent is, very small groups of kids. This is where the equity report card, we used a much smaller standard in terms of the group. So what we did in Ithaca was a bit more descriptive than what you find in the NCLB reporting. But